Hi students, welcome back to class. Let's continue the way of the world. Today we are going to see Act 2. Let's see. So Act 2, the scene is St. James Park. So here we can see the conversation between Mrs. Marwood and Mrs. Fainall. Act 1 ends with the decision of Mr. Fainall and Mr. Mirabel to meet the ladies in the park. So here we can see the ladies who are in the park. So there is a conversation between these two ladies in the park. So here the two ladies are Mrs. Marwood and Mrs. Fainall. So from the conversation it is clear that they don't like men. That is what they say. But whether they say what they say is true or not, we have to find out. So Mrs. Fainall says that she does not like men. There is a hatred for men. That is what she communicates through her words. So here she says that they should find some ways by which they can be happy. They did not depend on men for their happiness. So they are actually in an extreme way. Men behave in an extreme way. So as lovers, they are very passionate. They don't have sense, and they have their jealousies, and they are insupportable. So they have their extreme kinds of passion. So here she does not like that kind of a temperament, and she says that it is time for women to find out sources of pleasure in themselves, not to depend on men for their joy. And Mrs. Marwood also expresses her hatred for men, and she says that she is not ready to give up the pleasures of the youth by thinking that at one point of time her lover will quit her. So she here uses a very famous quote. So she says it is better to be left than never to be never to have been loved. So so here he says that it is very difficult to pass one's youth in dull indifference. It's again to sweet one's pleasures, to refuse one's pleasures just by thinking that one will become old and one's lover will forsake her. So that is very difficult. So she says that it is better to be left than never to have been loved. So that in the sense, what she says is that love may die, lover even before the lover dies, love in the hearts of the people may die, but it is better to love and be deserted by a lover than never to have been loved. So this left here means it's better to be loved and left by the lover than never to have been loved at all. That is what she says. So this kind of a saying has been used by many people. So people say that it is better to have been loved and lost than never to have been loved at all. So that says that Mrs. Marwood is not completely averse to men. There is a soft corner for men in her heart. So she says, Mrs. Fainall, Mrs. Fainall says that Mrs. Marwood seems to speak to the tunes of her mother, that is, to Lady Wishfort's moods. So here she says that there is no pleasure in the talk among women, and women do not have eternal friendships. Though they say that they have eternal friendships and all, but they don't have that kind of an eternal friendship. Usually we find jealousy among women. That is what Mrs. Marwood says. So she says that it's not in our natures long to persevere. That is, it is not in the nature of women to have such long-lasting relationships, long-lasting friendship between with women. So that is what she says. Anyway, And Mrs. Fainall is not able to understand the full sense of a word, so she thinks that this woman, that is Mrs. Marwood, is talking like a woman who believes in free love. So here she says that that's not the thing. Uh, so here she says that her feelings are not the like the feelings of Mrs. Fainall, but one thing is sure, that she also hates man. So Mrs. Fainall says that she does not hate. Uh, she does not love her husband. She hates her husband, and that she tells to her friend, who is actually the mistress of her husband. And she says that she hates even mankind as such. Okay, that is all human beings as such. So that is what she is telling. But still, especially the category of men, she does not like them. She hates them, and she hates her husband more than others. Um, so Mrs. Marwood, but just thinks that Mrs. Fainall is not true. But one thing she says that she hates her husband. So here, as they speak about this conversation, as they speak about these things, Mrs. Fainall just says one thing: if she were married to Mirabel. So immediately, Mrs. Marwood's face changes. There is a blush on her face. I wish I were. Okay, would I were? That is what she says. So when there is a blush on her face, Mrs. Fainall just says that there's a blush on your face, and she says that the blush is there because she hates him. That's why there is a blush on her face. So it is one thing Mrs. Fainall understands is that Mrs. Marwood does not hate Mirabel as she says, and Mrs. Marwood also understands that Mrs. Fainall does not hate Mirabel as she speaks about it. So here, what can be the reason for her hatred for Mirabel? She says that Mirabel is very proud, and she says that even the enemies of him also will not say that, they won't also they will not also accuse him of that fault. So that shows that Mrs. Fainall has some kind of a soft feeling for Mirabel. That is what Mrs. Marwood thinks. So here we can see a kind of mutual jealousy between these two ladies. And one thing you have to understand, that they are jealous about their relationship with Mirabel, not with Mr. Fainall at all. And here Mrs. Marwood does not like man, she says that, but she wants to get married, and she wants to make her husband think that he is cuckolded. That means he is cheated. So she will not cheat him, but she wants to give him the fear that he is always cheated by her, by his wife. So that is what she tries to do. So a strange way of showing revenge to men. Just giving the fear that he is cheated by his wife. That will be a kind of revenge against men. That is what she thinks. And she wants to do this by marrying and then cheating, by giving the fear, by making the husband always fear that his wife is cheating. That is what she's telling. So when that is the case, Mrs. Fainall speaks about Mrs. Marwood's possibility of marrying Mirabel, and then we can see a blush on her face. So from that it is clear that Mrs. Marwood has a special liking for Mirabel. She does not like Mirabel because Mirabel has not paid attention to Mrs. Marwood. Actually, she wants Mirabel to pay attention to her and Mirabel to love her, but that does not happen here. That is the reason for her hatred for Mirabel. That is why she is jealous of Mirabel, and she is jealous of Mirabel's attachment for anybody, Mirabel's affection for anybody. So she keeps a close watch on Mrs. Fainall also. So she wants to know whether Mrs. Fainall loves Mirabel or Mirabel loves Mrs. Fainall. That is what she wants to know. So at this time, we can see a change on the face of Mrs. Fainall. So Mrs. Marwood observes the change on her face, and she says that she becomes pale. And she says that she becomes pale because her husband is coming. So when she sees her husband, she becomes pale. So husband says that okay, she does not look well. What has happened to her? So we can see a kind of sweet talk in front of others between this husband and wife. This is a kind of affectation in the society. They just show hypocritical behavior in front of the society. So what is the real side of life is that they don't love each other. Neither Mrs. Fainall nor Mr. Fainall love each other. So that is what happens here. Then we can see from this conversation itself, we can see the mutual jealousy of the women, of these two women, and their distrust, mutual jealousy, and the meaningless friendship. And they say that the other one is a Mrs. Marwood says that Mrs. Fainall is the friend. Mrs. Fainall also says that Mrs. Marwood is a friend. But we don't see any kind of love or affection or trust between these two. This is a kind of meaningless friendship we can find in the play. So at that time, Mrs. Fainall and at that time Mr. Mirabel and Mr. Fainall come to them, and I've already told you about the sweet talk of Mr. Fainall and Mrs. Fainall in the public. They just show that they love each other very well, but that does not happen at all. But Mrs. Fainall starts a conversation with Mr. Mirabel by speaking about the story of Mr. Mirabel that he was trying to narrate to Lady Wishford the previous night during his visit. And now she wants to know about that story. Okay, so that story was not allowed to be continued. So she asked Mr. Mirabel to tell her the rest of the story. That is again about some kind of a slander which she wants to know. So telling this, we can say Mrs. Fainall moving away with Mr. Mirabel. So both of them just move away. It means they are actually walking ahead of Mrs. Marwood and Mr. Fainall. So Mrs. Marwood and Mr. Fainall are left. They are on the stage now. They are on the stage. So, but Mrs. Marwood wants to follow them. Mrs. Marwood just tells Mr. Fainall that why can't they follow them? So Mr. Fainall gets a doubt about Mrs. Marwood's behavior. Why is she so very particular about following Mrs. Fainall and Mr. Mirabel? That is what he thinks. And he says that why does she want to follow him? What is the reason? And he gets a bit jealous of Mrs. Marwood's behavior. So she says that she has a reason to follow them. And immediately he asks this question, is she jealous? So is she jealous of... then Mrs. Marwood asks, of whom? Mirabel. So then again, Mrs. Marwood gets very angry with the question, and she says that she is not inconsistent with her love for him. It is her desire to guard his honor. It is her desire to guard the honor of Mr. Fainall. So I have to tell you that Mrs. Marwood and Mr. Fainall are in love. This is an extramarital relationship. Mrs. Marwood is actually cheating her own friend. Mr. Fainall cheats his wife. So extramarital relationship goes ahead. But others do not know that there is an extramarital relationship between Mrs. Marwood and Mr. Fainall. So Mr. Fainall thinks that this woman, that is his lover, has a fascination, or she has a special liking for Mr. Mirabel. And it is because of her jealousy only that she has revealed the elopement plan of Millamant and Mirabel. So he has serious doubts about her character. So he is jealous of her attraction for Mirabel. And then the argument just continues. Okay, so she gets very angry, and she says that she is very constant, she is very loyal to her lover, Mr. Fainal, and she is trying to preserve the honor of her lover. That's why she wants to follow them. So that shows that she wants to spy on Mrs. Fainal, and she wants to find out whether there is any kind of intimacy between Mirabel and Mrs. Fainal. And for that only she is telling to follow them. That is the view she gives now. So this is something Mr. Fainal does not accept completely, and he immediately blames her, and he tells her that she is false. She is, so that is again something infuriating to Mrs. Marwood. She cannot control her anger, and she just shows her anger uh, by in a violent way. Okay, in a it's like the tempest coming out. So she says that Mr. Fainal is doing wrong. Okay, so that is what is happening, and um, and Fainal says that no, it is not. He does not do any wrong. Okay, and he does not actually. He oversees the neglect of. That is, he is not bothered about the wife's advances with Mirabel, but he is very much bothered about his lover's advances with the Mirabel. Okay, so that is what he says. Husband may be asleep about his wife's flirtation, but the lover will not be asleep about it. So the lover is always a watchful lover. So that is what Fainal says. So Mrs. Marwood just asks, okay, why is he reproaching her? And he says it's again for loving Mirabel. So, and she says that it's a false statement, and she says that she wants to get instances to prove that. And now Fainal says that the reason is this, that is, she has interfered in the love affair between Millamant and Mirabel, and she is the one who has discovered the elopement plan of Millamant, or the love between Millamant and Mirabel, and so he thinks that she is jealous of Millamant and Mirabel. That is the thing she tells. And actually, I have to tell you one thing. Lady Wishford thinks that Mirabel is in love with Lady Wishford, because I've already told you in the last class, Mirabel sent some letters to Lady Wishford in his eagerness to please her. So he praises her to a great extent, telling that she looks very young. Okay, even people may think that she is carrying, so she is very beautiful. So the flattery goes to such an extent that this woman thinks that Mirabel is in love with her. But that is revealed, that Mirabel is not in love with her, but Mirabel is in love with Millamant, is revealed to Lady Wishford by Mrs. Marwood. So that is why Mr. Fainal has a doubt about Mrs. Marwood's faithfulness to Fainal, and he doubts that this woman has a special liking, or she also loves Mirabel. That is what he doubts. So his point is this: if this has not been detected, Millamant and Mirabel would have eloped, and Millamant's fortune would have lost, and that would have been added to Mrs. Fainal's account. So in that way, he will be able to become richer. So that is what he thinks. So Mrs. Marwood is wounded now, okay, because of this accusation, because of this blame, and she says that she will not allow Mr. Fainal to continue in this way, and she threatens to expose Mr. Fainal's character. And she has fallen in love with Mr. Fainal, thinking that he is a man of honor and he is a man of wealth, But after falling in love with him, she understands that this man does not have honor or wealth or anything, so everything is lost now. So they have actually spent the money of Mrs. Marwood. So she now says that no, she will threaten and she will tell immediately to Mrs. Fainall about Mr. Fainall's unfaithfulness. So this is something that affects her as well. But still, she is going to tell this to Lady Wishford and to Mrs. Fainall. She'll be telling this to Mrs. Fainall. So she shows that much of anger now. So Mr. Fainall says that she is telling all these things because of her guilt, and it's not a resentment, okay? Because she is unhappy that her character is exposed. She's unhappy that she's not. She's unhappy that Mr. Fainall has pointed out that she is not very loyal to him. She is also in love with Mirabel. She is also jealous of Mirabel. So her true character, her true nature is exposed. That's why she is threatening him. That is what he says. So here, Fainall says that he has tried his level best to preserve the fame of both of them, and even the money also that he has received, he has spent on their pleasures only for the sake of the pleasures. And he has actually accused her of this because he has thought of getting even Melamon's fortune. Okay, so with that amount, he'll be able to lavish his love on the lover. So he'll loot the money of, he will loot his wife, and then he will spend it on the lover. That is what he says. And he agrees that he has married this Mrs. Fainall for money, because Mrs. Fainall was a widow at the time of marriage. Okay? And he did not have even a trace of love for Mrs. Fainall at the time of marriage. It was only for money that he married Mrs. Fainall, and he is now reveling in the money of Mrs. Fainall, and he wants to spend it on her. That is what is mentioned here. And it's clear that Mrs. Marwood cannot be pleased, or she cannot be pacified in any way. So Fainall says that, and Mrs. Marwood says that she does not want to continue this relationship. She wants to part, and she says bye, and she is about to leave. At that time, Mr. Fainall tells no to be very angry. And he tells sorry, he apologizes. So when he apologizes, we can see that the mood of Mrs. Marwood changing. So they patch up the quarrel in that way. So they have decided that they will be loyal to one another. Okay, they will be loyal to each other, and they are not going to fight in the name of distrust. And he says that he is not bothered about his wife's lack of faithfulness, but he is bothered about his lover's consistency. Okay, so that is what he says. And after that, okay, we can come to the conversation between Mirabel and Mrs. Fainall. So in this conversation, okay, we can see that Mrs. Fainall was in love with Mirabel. Mrs. Fainall actually does not like her husband, Mr. Fainall, at all. And she asks Mirabel why he has forced her to marry Mr. Fainall. And Mirabel tells that it is because of the fear of losing her reputation. So one thing we have to remember is that Mirabel and Mrs. Fainall were lovers. That is, Mrs. Fainall was a widow at that time. Mirabel was in love with Mrs. Fainall, and their intimacy went to an extent that the fear that Mrs. Fainall was pregnant. So Mr. Mirabel was not in a position to marry Mrs. Fainall, and he wanted to save the reputation of his lover, and he forced Mrs. Fainall to marry Mr. Fainall because Mr. Fainall was a dishonorable man, but at the same time he had a reputation in the society. Though he did not have money, there was a reputation in the society, and to save her from losing the reputation, he forced Mrs. Fainall to marry Mr. Fainall. Anyway, um, so she has lost her love. She knows that her husband also does not love her, and she has lost this lover also because this lover, Mr. Mirabel, is in love with another woman, that is Millamant. So, but she is not jealous of Mirabel, so that we don't see here. So now Mirabel confides in her his secret plot. His secret plot is to show that Sir Rowland actually is not Sir Rowland, his uncle. So here we know that Lady Wishford is seeking to disinherit Mirabel by marrying Sir Rowland. So Sir Rowland, she is made to believe that Sir Rowland is the uncle of Mirabel. But there is no character called Sir Rowland in the play. So this Sir Rowland is an imaginary uncle, is an imaginary character created by Mirabel, and he just tells his servant Waitwell to act like Sir Rowland, that is the uncle of Mirabel, and when if Lady Wishford is about to get married to Waitwell, okay, who poses himself as Sir Rowland according to the instruction of Mirabel, Mirabel will come and reveal the true identity of Waitwell, and he will save her from this disaster, and so he hopes that she will be pleased with him. And one more thing is that so he will force her to agree to the marriage, okay, to the marriage between Millamant and Mirabel with all her fortune. So this is his idea, okay. So it's clear that Lady Wishford is eager to marry anybody. So she will not be actually thinking that, Sir Rowland is not the uncle. So if she is made to believe that Sir Rowland is the uncle of Mirabel, in her anger for Mirabel and in her eagerness to get married, she will be ready to marry Sir Rowland. Okay, so that is what is going to happen. Now she wants to disinherit Mirabel because that is the way to show her anger. Because if Sir Rowland gets married, then Mirabel will not have any claim on the property of Sir Rowland. That is what she believes, and she will be able to avenge Mirabel, okay, for the insult she has faced in the hands of Mirabel. That is what she thinks. So even her daughter, Mrs. Fainall, okay, Arabella, her name is Arabella. Okay, even she thinks that her mother is ready to marry anybody. So both of them know her character. So they are actually making fun of this. Okay, so it may happen when one becomes old. That also they say. They are actually just speaking about the passion of the old age, okay, the desire of the people in the old age. So that is what is shown here. And after that, we can see Millamant, Witwoud, and Mincing coming to park. So Mrs. Millamant is followed by Witwoud. So she gets irritated with Witwood's talk. And it's as if she'll be followed by some kind of fools who will entertain her. So she says that okay, to some extent the talk with the fools will revive her spirit. And here Witwoud always speaks in terms of comparisons. She's fed up with his comparisons. She's fed up with his similes. She does not want to use any kind of simile. So this is making her irritated. So she just tells Witwoud to stop talking, but he does not do that. And here Mrs. Fainall asks why Mrs. Millamant is late in coming to park, and Mrs. Millamant says that she has received a number of letters from admirers, and so that has actually taken her away her time. So it is mentioned that she has a number of letters, and which are in prose and in verse, from a number of admirers, and she shows that she is much admired by the other people. So Millamant tells Mrs. Fainall to draw Witwoud away, so that Millamant and Mirabell will be able to talk to each other. So before that, we can see Mirabell telling about the cruelty of Millamant. Okay, Millamant has actually showed indifference to Mirabell the previous night, and she has not entertained Mirabell. It has hurt him, and she says that she has the power to in her there is a power in cruelty. So that shows that the other person will be hurt. So that shows that the person who inflicts cruelty on the other person, is loved by the other one. So when Mrs. Millamant has shown indifference, Mirabell gets hurt. So that shows that Mirabell is in love with Mrs. Millamant. That is why he is getting hurt with the behavior of Mrs. Millamant. So, but Mirabell says that she is beautiful as long as the lover gives the beauty. So he says that beauty is the gift of lover. Okay. So when the lover praises her only, she'll be able to acknowledge her beauty. So even that is also the beauty and the youth are gift of the lover. So if the lover is displeased and the lover leaves, there won't be any charm in the life of Millamant. That is what he says. And Millamant says that is just the vanity of men. So she tells this to Mincing and to Witwoud also. That is the vanity of man. One can make lovers as one pleases, okay, and that will last long. That also he says. And after that, we can see Mrs. Fainall just moving away with Witwoud, because she says that she wants to talk to Witwoud. This is again a time for Mirabell and Millamant to have a private conversation. So Millamant again says that it's because of their engagement with the people in that cabal night that she was not able to pay attention to Mirabell. She had to be indifferent. So Millamant gets angry with her engagement with the fools around. Why does she have to spend her time with all the fools around? Millamant says that even talking with fools will also help her. That will help her to change the melancholic mood. That will help her to be happy. And here, Millamant does not like Mirabell criticizing her and the serious way of treating her. And Millamant says that this is something she cannot like, and she says that this is not the way to be treated. And she says that she does not want to be said always that she is wrong, that is wrong, okay, she is not doing right. So she does not want to be told that always by her lover. So if this is the way Mirabell is going to talk to her, and she is not happy in that relationship, and she is not interested in that. That is what she says. And Mirabell wants to speak about his plan to Millamant, and Millamant says that she knows it already, and Mirabell is just surprised. How does she know? So here Millamant says that she knows it because Foible has already told her. So from that, it's clear that Millamant and Mrs. Fainall know about the plan of the secret plan of Mr. Mirabell. And we can see Millamant and Mincing leaving the place. So actually Mirabell wants to talk to Millamant both, but she does not give time to Mirabell. She does not make him think that she is easily approachable. She can be won very easily. She does not make him think in that way. So she just moves away. And after that, we can find and Foible coming to the park. They are coming like lovers. So it's clear that they are happy with their married life. They are coming like lovers only. And Waitwell says that he'll be doing his duty. Mirabel just reminds Waitwell of the task he has to perform, not to enjoy the marital pleasures now, but there is a purpose and he has to do that. And Waitwell says that that will be done very well. Okay, and then Foible just says that she has come to show the photo of the lady. There is Lady Wishford to Rowland. The photo is in her pocket, and so Foible has convinced Lady Wishford that Sir Rowland will be in love with the Sir Rowland will be in love with the Lady Wishford. Okay, so that is what is mentioned here. Anyway, Mirabel just gives a tip to Foible, and we can see Waitwell also asking a share of the tip, but Mirabel does not give. Mirabel says that if the plan succeeds, he will be given good provision. Okay, he does not have to worry about anything. So when Foible talks to Mirabel, Mrs. Marwood passes that way. She observes Foible talking to Mirabel. So immediately Foible also thinks that Mrs. Marwood may go and tell this to Lady Wishford that she has seen Foible talking to Mirabel. So she does not have time to waste there. She says that her lady is waiting there and she is now hurrying up back to the house of Lady Wishford. Anyway, Mirabel tells Waitwell not to forget his original identity, that is, Waitwell is just the servant of Mirabel. He should not forget that he is a servant of Mirabel because now he has to act the role of Sir Rowland, a man who belongs to the aristocratic family and the one who loves a lady who belongs to the aristocratic family. So with that, he should not forget his original identity. That is what he says. So in this act, we can see the action getting developed. So the plan of the secret plot of Mirabel is revealed completely, and we can see the vanities in the lives of the characters, vanities in the lives of Mirabel, sorry, not Mirabel, vanities in the lives of Mrs. Fainall, Mrs. Marwood, Mr. Fainall, that can be seen here. They don't have any kind of a real relationship. Extramarital relationships also can be seen here. One extramarital relationship we see is again one extramarital relationships, I cannot say extramarital relationship, between Fainall and Mrs. Marwood. There is a premarital relationship that is again between Mrs. Fainall and Mirabel. Okay, so loveless marital relationships are shown in the play. So with that, I am just concluding today's lecture. I hope you have understood it thoroughly. So I'll come back with the next lecture. So keep listening to the recorded lectures. Study well. Take care. Stay safe at home. Bye.